Okay, so I know they're still corralling people up, and we will get started. Okay, so for our next panel, the Pact for the Future commits to the sustainable use of emerging and open source technologies, supporting open science and open innovation, and increasing efforts to support capacity building. And so this panel is will address, amongst other things, the significant opportunities and challenges to the technical infrastructure, the open source repositories and journal platforms that sustain open science. The panel is moderated by Dr. Juan Pablo Alperin. Juan is an associate professor in the publishing program, the associate director of research for the Public Knowledge Project, and the co-director of the Scholarly Communications Lab. Dr. Alperin is an associate professor in publishing. Yeah, I know, I'm a little bit repeating myself there. You wear many hats, and they're all critically important to the work that we do, including as co-director of the ScholComm Lab and the scientific director of the Public Knowledge Project at Simon Fraser University. Dr. Alperin is an established researcher of scholarly communications, known for bringing evidence-based perspectives to pragmatic solutions in support of open access and open science. He has published dozens of peer-reviewed publications and delivered countless presentations on related topics, and serves on the boards and steering committees of various organizations, including the Open Access Scholarly Publishing Association, OASPA, and Open Alex. His work focuses on making scholarly communication more equitable, inclusive, and publicly engaged, particularly across Latin America and the Global South. Juan, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much. And yeah, I wear too many hats, but it's really great to put on the hat of being the moderator of this panel. Being late in the second day and after the coffee break, I was a little bit concerned about whether we were going to have the energy to be able to really give this excellent panel the attention and the focus that I think it really deserves. But after actually that really great panel right before the break, I think we are all live in the series of questions that got left unanswered shows that everyone here is really well engaged. And I think that panel actually set up this one quite nicely. So I will not take up, as my introduction just took up way too much time with talking about my own background. I'm just going to go very quickly and then just introduce very briefly just our four panelists. We have three of them here. The fourth panelist is joining us remotely from Argentina. He'll be speaking himself in Spanish, but we'll be hearing the direct translation here in the room. So just a little bit, just to give you a sense of where that is going. So let me just turn it over to Sefakor Ankora, who is a DevOps engineer at the West and Central Africa Research and Education Network, better known as WACREN. Sefakor holds a Master's of Science in Digital Forensics and Cybersecurity, and for the last several years, he's been working in many ways to advance open infrastructures, open science infrastructures in Africa. So really someone that counts with the technical expertise and the support really working in this space. So we're lucky to count on him for this presentation. So the floor is yours, Sefakor.
Thank you, Juan. I would like to start by thanking the organizers of this conference, especially Mex, for inviting me. I've already seen the opportunity with connecting with other members, especially my colleagues from Ghana. I bring you warm greetings from my colleagues at WACREN. WACREN is a West and Central African Research and Education Network. WACREN, our main focus is to help institutions, universities with network and other services. And we had a flagship program that we call LeapSense. LeapSense is about bringing librarians, researchers, and IT people together to develop an infrastructure which is promoting open science and open access. Now, whilst we work with LeapSense, we want to connect our priorities with FAIR principles and also promoting UNESCO's open science recommendations. Our main focus is that we want to build a network where the experts are from the community. It should be community owned, and the standards should be well recognized. Wacken identified some challenges, and that brought the birth of LipSense. And these challenges, I've seen most of them in the presentation from my previous speakers, one being unequal access to scientific knowledge across the regions. And when we considered all this together, we decided to have the initiative, which is LipSense, that solve the problems of African research institutions. LipSense basically works with 3 pillars. The first one being infrastructure. With infrastructure, we're talking about repositories, persistent identifiers, and then metadata standards. And then also, we cannot just have this infrastructure without the community. So we promote capacity building. We bring together a network of experts and librarians. Now, how do we sustain this? We need to have a policy to drive this process, which is the LipSense initiative. And so we have institutional and national open science roadmaps that align with FAIR and UNESCO principles. What we normally do is that we bring experts together, organize programs and workshops, sometimes online, sometimes in person, to have engagement and connections with our NREN community members. The vision is to strengthen repositories and open access systems, improving metadata standards and persistent identifiers, supporting the adoption of open science policies, and fostering active communities of practice. So, as I previously mentioned, LipSense has 3 main pillars, which is the infrastructure, community, and then the policy that drives these initiatives. I'm going to talk about some of the projects that we have done under LipSense. The first one being a repository that we call Baobab. So in trying to solve some of the challenges that we identified, we realized that we need to have a repository for our NREN members. And so we joined the Invinio RDM community as a member of the Invinio RDM group. And then we work hand in hand with them together to build a repository called Baobab for use. So this is a regional cash oil repository for the West and Central African region. We have communities of different institutions who are using this Baobab repository. So an institution which is not having a resource, which is under resource, who doesn't have the capacity to own their own repository, is free to contact Wacken, and we create a community for them on our repository. And then the second project that we're working on is a national multi-tenant repository, which we call Rumbu. We got this idea from Japan, the NNI. They have a platform which is Weko3. And so Wacken decided to partner with NNI so that we'll be able to leverage on this Weko3 and then deploy for our NREN members. And so we've been working with NNI for some time, and we are going to see Rumbu, which is the national multi-tenant repository, coming live soon. This repository is going to, at the moment, we have 16 universities in Nigeria who are interested in piloting this. The infrastructure is Kubernetes. And so on this Kubernetes, we deploy 16 repositories for institutions that are not able to have their own repositories. I'm talking about the under-resourced universities within the Nigerian country. And this reduces hosting and maintenance costs. So Wacken deploys this repository, and then we give them training and allow them to customize the repository to their own standard, and also giving them support, technical support, as they go along. The third project that Wacken has undertaken is PitsLink. PitsLink is an app-based service. The previous speakers talk about persistent identifiers, and there were issues and concerns about DOIs, the cost of it. There are some institutions in Africa that will not be able to afford a DOI. And so what we did was to work together with ARC Alliance. And so we joined ARC Alliance, and we have set up ARC Server at Wacken. And this ARC Server provides pitch services to our members. And so on our Baobab, on our Rumbu, and we have a publishing platform also. What happens is that researchers that use this platform, once they post or publish their articles, we assign ARCs to them at no cost. So what we're trying to do is to promote the use of ARCs in our region. And we also realized the need to help our early career researchers and the researchers at large with a publishing platform. And so in doing that, we partnered with IFOL and COCO. IFOL gives us the ideas and the standards for which we should deploy these publishing platforms to meet Diamond Open Access. I can remember one of the days we deployed one, and a group of scientists wanted to use it, and IFOL came in, and as developers, they were able to tell us some of the fields, the metadata fields that were needed, those that are not needed. And so these things, correlation with these institutions is able to help us also understand the standards that this publishing platform should meet for our members. And so that brings us to our third project, the case study, which is a publishing platform that we call Publish Now, which is built on Kotahi. Kotahi is an open source platform which can host journals, print servers, and a peer review platform. And so the idea is to have our researchers have a platform for them where they can easily publish their research articles. And this Publish Now platform, since it's built on Kotahi and we work hand in hand with IFOL and other teams, we are able to provide the standard publishing platform that will be needed. And so researchers don't need to have a problem of looking for places or platform where they need to publish their articles. And then we have Core Notify. So our first project, which is Baobab, in a way, we can transform it into a preprint server where we connect the Core Notify to Baobab. So the link between Core Notify, Baobab, and Publish Now. And so Baobab becomes more like a preprint server. And with the connection of Core Notify, published articles can appear on the journal. Now, how do we achieve all this? We most of the time run programs which we call capacity building. We bring repository managers together, metadata creation experts. We sometimes have experts in the fields of metadata that comes to meet the community members. And we have network of experts from these universities who also engage other members. We have a LibSense Connect program, which is for developers. So we select developers from institutions that come together to share ideas on how to create platforms that will help their research institutions. And we are not just building platforms. We want to have a community. And so governance and community is one of the key items. And the governance is from the bottom-up approach. We want the community members, which are the institutions, to come together to share ideas, to have their own practices of what they want from Wacken. So it's not like Wacken is just building platforms or tools, but we are actually involving them in the process. And whilst we do this, we want to align the work we are doing with the global policy and the guiding principles of FAIR. And with technical standards, we're looking at OAI, PM8, and all the good standards that are accepted worldwide. So far, we were able to train hundreds of librarians and IT staffs. Our national room book is going to go live soon. Paid link is active. We are able to provide institutions that want to use apps on their platform with API to integrate. We realize that Nigeria has a lot of DSpace users, and most of them find it difficult to set up the handle identifier. So we give them access to PitLink to integrate with their DSpace platform. Our future direction, we want to scale what we are doing. We want to have support for our NREs and build more capacity. And finally, I want to say, you should visit our LeapSense website. We are calling people into action. We're looking for early career researchers to join us to promote the open science and open access program. We want a network of experts, people who are already in the field, to also come and join us so that we do a good work. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Sefakor. It's really great to hear from people concretely building the platforms and then bringing people on to enable all of this open science to happen and to happen and the community building that comes along with it. I'm sure we'll be able to ask you some questions about this. Next up is Mikiko Tanifuji, who leads development of Japan's research data cloud, a national infrastructure supporting all scientific domains, from data management to publication and open science monitoring. Mikiko has deep expertise in research and data infrastructures and scholarly publishing, has served in an open science working group of Japan's Cabinet Office, on the RDA Council, and on the COAR Executive Board. So, Mikiko, the floor is yours.
Thank you for introduction. Hello, everyone. I'm Mikiko, based in Tokyo, Japan. And thank you for inviting for this opportunity. I'm very grateful to share my last more than couple years, experiences in a domain in material science, and also currently in national-wide sciences. And in my experience that success and failures, and now with AI, I'm sort of come to a conclusion that this is something that I would like to share with you, the issues which I will introduce in my slides. So in Japan, the blue part is so organizational relationship for science and technology. So there's a cabinet office and Technology and Innovation Council and Academics Council, where academia people come together to discuss through the Ministry of Science Culture. And then green box, there is a funding agencies and universities, research institutes, and NII is one of Ministry of Science Culture body. So what we do is to provide this managed data, published data, and provide discoverability for the science throughout a global collaboration and a local communication. So now 2025 is a memorable year to all of us that we now be asked or demanded every public funded research result should be openly accessible immediately. So following by the other countries who are already advanced in this topic, we know how hard it will be to scientists, and we know how time consuming for scientists. So what NII care is to how to minimize the minimize the time and cost and maximize the outcome of the science by openly accessible. So what we have done, the NII is responsible for scholarly network infrastructure, so-called SciNet. And SciNet provide a security, high-speed network entire Japan, almost Japan, which is communicatable between a global academic network, so that once you joined, your communication with SciNet is guaranteed to be able to proper authentications and also a research data cloud, which is about 380 universities using the user authentication and authorizations who wish to use a publication platform like a repository that the previous presenter introduced, and also research management system. So this is a scale of how small country provide with the fund by Minister of Science Culture this is it. However, not only just infrastructure, of course, we have to communicate. We wish to understand what a library community wish to do through our infrastructure. The openly accessible, yes, we like to help, but how? And how to make it sustainable, how to make researchers to economize their time to a more efficient way to share their data and articles. Yes, we like to communicate with Japan University ICT community. And yes, we want to understand what's happening to each university to implement those functionalities that we provide and what is the issues. So understanding through these communities, we also identify data stewardship, which is one of the recent terms, to educate the people who involve the libraries, who involve the universities, infrastructure, to share the same understanding of research data management, how to make it possible for global people to access to the research data together with articles. We also collaborate with global communities, including Wakren, that's really nice to see you today, and also a community in China, Korea, and also in Europe. We do commit to how to understand and share our version of research data infrastructure and what is happening to Europe and what is the issues throughout Research Data Alliance, for example. I just come back from Research Data Alliance yesterday, and I reflect on what I agreed to such 300 or 500 scale of people to discuss through this week. One of the issues is how mutual approaches, yes, we do, such as federated data infrastructure like IOSC, and global open research commons to share what commons can we implement in our university or research institutes for data sharing and protocol standards. And we almost are understanding each other that yes, nationwide, it is important for government to guide and support to control over the data, like one single user authentication system, for example. But internationally, also, it is important to shareable or interoperable. That's how the fair matters. And so this is one of the issues. And also, second issue is how to make it sustainable. It's all ideal topics are introduced in many scenes, but how to make it sustainable is another type of approach that we have to think carefully. And so more we understand to wish to comply with expanding data ecosystem, but at the same time, we do care about how to maintain the quality of the data. We all about for science, but we also want to make it to reliable and transferable data infrastructures. And issue number 3 is a little bit more close to the publishing industry, that data democratization, for example, how to democratize by nations guideline, for example, but the science is global and science is equal to anyone who wish to join. So how to make it to happen? And for example, in science, it is extremely important to cite whose contribution and trustworthiness for the data, where it come from and how to use it and how to you work with AI to generate the result of the scientific finding. And what is about responsibility and copyright use? The AI wish to use a lot of data, but often the academic communities say, I don't want to share our intellectual property. So there's many discussions ongoing. So like Managing Director Professor Kurohashi introduced yesterday's session, I wish you are all here, that we do put the large language model, which is an equivalent scale of one of the giant global companies, generative AI and LLM. This is comparable right now. And then we do care to the coverage and the language and openly accessible so that it is comprehensive and reusable language model in your sciences. So we would like to develop the sort of community to open as a part of the research infrastructure that wish to have more collaborative in global scale that will be more ready for the tomorrow. So my conclusion message is in my opinion, knowledge isn't built into the data infrastructure. There's a data, but there isn't knowledge yet. But the right infrastructures can break down barriers and lead to the knowledge. That's what we all are willing to work together in global community and commit myself or commit the country level throughout any failure and success and move on to beyond the barriers. So at the end, I'd like to introduce my colleagues in NII who devoted over 100% each person for the open science. Thank you.
Thank you, Mikiko. Really important. I think we're mentioning earlier today that the people behind the infrastructures. And so really nice to finish with that. But also to get this sense of the multiple layers of infrastructures that are operating, right? With the people being at the foundation, but then all of these other different infrastructures that all need to work in concert with one another at different levels. So thank you very much for that presentation. Our next speaker is Ivonne Lujano, who's a member of the Mexican National System of Researchers and a postdoctoral fellow at the Colegio Mexiquense. She holds a PhD in education and policy, PhD in education policy and evaluation from Arizona State University. But I think most of you in this community probably know her better as the community manager for the DOAJ and as one of their senior ambassadors for Latin America. Ivonne, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I would like to start by thanking the organizing committee for having me. And it is really an honor and a pleasure to be here. So I'm going to talk about the DOAJ, the Directory of Open Access Journals. I hope you all know about it. You have used it, promoted, etc. But I will give some details about what we are, what we do, and our future projects. So what is the DOAJ? First of all, the DOAJ is a nonprofit organization that is based in Denmark, but it operates globally. It is a truly online organization. We don't have headquarters or a physical office. It's all online. And it is a unique and extensive list of journals that are fully open access. So we don't index hybrid journals or other type of journals that don't have all their contributions fully open access. So, and also it is important to say and highlight that all the journals that we index in the database are peer-reviewed. All of them also are from different disciplines, languages, locations, and our mission is to make them more visible and to have this global database that can be used by researchers, by students, etc. The database has been used to for instance, identify journals that don't charge APCs and among other characteristics that we include in our criteria. The criteria that DOAJ uses for indexing journals has become a gold standard for different databases, even government systems, assessment systems, etc. And I must say that the criteria that we use to include journals has been constructed collectively throughout the years. So, and it has changed from the beginning of the database. I will explain more later, but I want to again highlight the community-based approach that we have to decide what are the standards for journals. Also, our metadata and all the services that we provide to journals and to researchers and journal editors are free. And they are available. The metadata is available for all. You can download the entire database and make analysis and use it as your convenience. So the DOAJ has evolved throughout its 22 years of history. It started as a simple list of journals. It was a 300 journal list, and soon became the primary index of open access journals. And as the open access became the standard for publications, it was important for the DOAJ to set this criteria of quality. And in 2014, we developed this set of standards to raise the quality standard and to start tackling the increasing problem of these so-called predatory journals or questionable journals. In 2016, we had a big milestone. We received a grant from the IDRC to launch the Ambassador Project. This is a program that recruits volunteers from different regions, but especially from the Global South, to promote best practices and to promote open access in these regions. And another milestone from 2020 onwards, we are part of different, again, systems of evaluation of journals in different countries, in different national systems. This is the coverage. As you can see, it is pretty global. The 5 top countries in DOAJ are Indonesia, US, the UK, Brazil. But we have pretty much global coverage. Our challenge for the next year is to index more journals from Africa. We are currently working with our ambassadors and other stakeholders in Africa to raise the profile of journals in Africa. Just a quick thing to mention is that one of the challenges in Africa is that as we are a free database, people don't trust very much in like free services. They want to, and they prefer to pay for these like high reputable rankings, right? So this is a challenge for us. These are some of the numbers, more than 22,000 journals. Out of them, 14,000 are diamond open access journals. So in case you want to find a journal to publish in and you don't have the money to pay a high APC, you can use the DOAJ as a resource. If you work in a library, if you're a professor, etc., please do not hesitate to look at the DOAJ. 89 languages are represented in the DOAJ. We embrace multilingualism, and it is we are very proud to list journals in many different languages from 140 countries. Look at these charts. This is kind of the evolution of the database in terms of multilingualism. It started with very few languages represented. Today, we have, as I mentioned, 89 languages. Some of them are indigenous languages or like very local and, very local languages. Part of our statistics from last year. As you can see, we receive a lot of applications every year, almost 9,000 per year. So many journals want to be indexed in the DOAJ, but very few are accepted because of our criteria. Again, our criteria the intention is to be a standard, but a minimum standard of quality in different areas like peer review, editorial board, technologies, etc. We have also updated requests because we are a living database and we are constantly updating the database. So we receive these requests from journal editors. Our acceptance rate, as I said, is low. It's 23%. And we have a small team, only 13 people in the editorial staff, but more than 100 volunteers. I would like to thank the volunteering work of the editors across the world. The DOAJ is pretty much highly used for interoperable systems, and one of the advantages of including the journals in the DOAJ is that they receive more readership, more authorship, more authors from different parts of the world. They raise their profile, and that's what we have received from the feedback from the community. Our metadata is highly used by different systems, as you can see, even OpenAlex and other big databases uses, and many other projects use the DOAJ database and AI solutions as well, of course. And you, as I mentioned, you can download our metadata and use it. DOAJ is a scholarly infrastructure, and it's open and committed to not be sold and to be owned by the community, because the community is who funds the DOAJ. And some of the programs I mentioned already, this DOAJ Ambassador Program, this is the coverage of the program. As you can see, we are pretty much focused on the Global South. And I would like to take this opportunity to mention also our influence in policy. And this is one of the examples, the Mexican system of scientific and humanistic publications is a program, it's a project that is being designed by the Mexican government currently, and it pretty much embraces UNESCO recommendations from Open Science. But the highlight here is that this project is going towards Open Science and Diamond journals. We are working together with the Mexican government to support journals and encourage them to not live to APC-based journals. And one of the things that also we are trying to push with this initiative is to connect this with the research assessment systems, because we know that these are sometimes like going in the different directions, and we want to integrate these two systems. Other projects with the community are Think, Check, Submit. I hope you know about this initiative, the Open Access Journals Toolkit that is pretty useful if you are running a journal. And in different regions, we collaborate with partners like Latindex and Cielo, the two most important databases in Latin America, the AMAS and the Almasi project, that if you haven't heard about it, it's a pretty new project that supports Diamond journals. We will have a forum, science, open science and policy forum. So you are all invited to join this forum. And I'm going to conclude talking about the support that we receive in the DOAJ. As I mentioned, the DOAJ is funded by the community. So 75% of our supporters are universities, libraries, and other stakeholders in the research community. We have pretty much like smaller publishers, small universities, but also big publishers, even commercial publishers are supporting the DOAJ because they value the service that we provide to the community. But we require more investment, and in this panel and in the past panels, we have talked about the importance of supporting these infrastructures that sometimes we take for granted and that are almost invisible for the community. So we want to invite you, your organizations, to support the DOAJ, not only with money and funding, but also by using it, by spreading the word about the work that we do, and also, of course, inviting journals to get indexed. As I said, and as you can see in this chart, we are pretty much very useful for the community according to these numbers, but we require more funding and more support, because also the DOAJ has become kind of a gatekeeper, we are tackling this problem of the predatory journals across the world, or questionable journals. We have 400, even last year or 2 years ago, we processed 500 cases of questionable journals, and we require the support because we think that sometimes grants and investments go to these innovative projects and new projects, but we take for granted the infrastructures that we already have and that we require to keep having for the community. So we prioritize the needs of the community, and this is just a call for you to, again, look at our website, look at what we do, and approach to your ambassador if you have, if you live in Africa, in Latin America, in Asia, please don't hesitate to contact us. And this is all, I think. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yvonne. And thank you everyone for keeping on time, making my job very easy. And I'll thank also our timekeepers here who are giving the stern timekeeping sign. So it's really been wonderful to watch the DOAJ sort of grow over all of these years and go from being just that simple list of journals as a place to sort of keep track, and into growing not just in terms of becoming an essential infrastructure, but also the DOAJ as an organization also becoming sort of a leader of and being able to advocate for these thousands of journals that are spread around the world, and really to become an important voice for the open access community. Our last speaker is going to be joining us remotely, and I'm assuming that I can now see that we've got him online. So Gustavo Archuby is the Director of Information Technology at the School of Humanities and Education Sciences at the Universidad Nacional de La Plata in Argentina. He is a computer analyst from the School of Computer Science from the same Universidad de La Plata. And I will take a moment to say, well, again, we'll be hearing him. He'll be speaking in Spanish. We'll be hearing him here in the room in English, and those that are watching online should be able to also use the interpretation function to be able to hear him in the language of their choice. I'll take the opportunity also to say a few days late, Feliz cumpleaños, Gustavo, that I know was his birthday last week. His family and mine have known each other for a long time, and it's actually a really nice coincidence that I get the opportunity to be able to moderate this panel that you're on, Gustavo. So
welcome, and it's a pity that you're not here with us in person, so it's a pleasure having you here. Go ahead. All right, thank you very much. I just want to know that if you can hear me fine. Okay, thank you, Juan Carlos. Really. And I'll begin the presentation. So before anything, thank you for the invite and giving us the opportunity of proposing this topic. I'm speaking in plural because it's something that we've been working as a group between different universities. And to get a little context into the topic, this is an issue that we started noticing strongly during the last few years, is that our institutional devices started being harvested in a way that was very violent and saturated the servers, provoking in this way a denial, an issue with the service. And this made us rethink the issue that we are about to present. In this sense, our proposal comes from 4 different possible dimensions: 1 ethical, 1 policy, a technical one, which is more operational and economic, and epistemological. The ethical dimension proposes the fact that if it corresponds to take all this knowledge that is in these different repositories without any kind of consent, without asking about it, and on the other hand, we are responsible for these repositories. There are researchers that left their jobs and tasks in these repositories, and it corresponds to us to ask ourselves if we can deliver when often they do not comply with the requirements for open access. So in the political dimension, we must think what decisions we must make and what is the fundamental baseline behind it. We want to use to train AI models, yes or no? We have to talk about it. What are the consequences, and maybe what are the positive or negative aspects of providing this knowledge through theses or research papers or scientific articles. And then it's a technical aspect. There were thousands of automated requests saturating the local servers, and this overload affects the access to the users of the university community. So in that point of view and that dimension, what should we do? And lastly, the most important one to my thinking, because behind this, there is a acknowledgement of the knowledge, and something that we're thinking about is that the use of these platforms sometimes destroys the networks of global knowledge. And then there is a whole other level of knowledge based on platforms. So the ethical dimension, in detail, let's try to go faster, is the origins of the repositories. We're going to talk about the origin of these institutional repositories. In Argentina, we have a law of these institutional repositories that forces that all the developments that are done with public funds must be published in these open access repositories, and this is by law. This started since 2013, that the law exists, and in universities that the majority of them are public, financed with public funds, we should have repositories where we gather all the work that is done in the university and research institutes. At the same time, the institutional repositories are open. These are to preserve and generate knowledge, and these platforms extract the knowledge from repositories without any attribution, without any consent or benefit for the communities. The repositories provide high quality curated data. As the panelists were just talking about the protocol that extracts and allows to extract in a free way all the metadata of each of the theses, masters, essays, articles, and investigation and research projects. Anything that is in the repositories is available to access through the protocol and is used to take out the data, high quality data in the repositories. This information in return is a return to the society that financed these works. It's good to use with academic purposes, but not with commercial ends by corporations that did not contribute to its development. So as we would say in Argentina many years ago that we would sell cloth or to the UK, for example, the wool, and then we would buy the sweaters back. Today, we can say that we're giving out knowledge and buying platforms of IA or AI. The political dimension. So what do we do with this? We have to restrict the access and defining methods of access and function of the users. We spoke about it in the panel of restricting the broadband, who, well, citizens, to institutions, to corporations, with what criteria? According to the law, of course, because we respect the law, and therefore we have a repository law that forces us to put this kind of documents in an open access manner. But these platforms sometimes do not respect the law itself, so it's an unbalanced game. And thinking about the use of the information, this could be a criteria, if it's for commercial use or if it's for corporate use. We must think about changing the law if it's viable. Since the 2013, if this is viable, and the AI did not exist back in the day. Then the technical dimension, operational. The corporations under aggressive data extraction So aggressively, they evade controls and they generate issues for repositories users. So the lack of access to the distributed service, they do not respect agreements, something as basic as, for example, there was an aspect in which one university, what part of the platform they could go in and what parts they couldn't. The bots do not respect that. And often they go by loops, sometimes showing the same documents. Catalogs online and the educational platforms are also have agreements. And the online catalog is usually attacked and it generates issues to the whole library management system that is used as a tool to manage the library itself. So what must we do? Buy equipment with bigger capacities? Is that the solution? Here, just to put an example, I'm going to show you some graphs about the use of the repositories. This is the academical repository of the humanity school where I work at, which, including the law in a mandatory way since 2013, it requires all the publicly funded research results should be deposited in these repositories. This is a graph of the repository on 2014, the institutional repository, and you can see that there is a growth, a linear growth up to 2018 and 2019. There was a growth on the use of it that had been stable, but then there is a big jump, a big leap on 2020, and the access to repositories went up a lot. We thought it was the pandemic, but when we saw the blogs, we noticed that it wasn't. This was from January 2015 on the month of January, which is a month where in which we don't work in the university. It's not active, but it's a distribution throughout the days. This is then a graph so this is the graph, as I was saying, until 2019 that it becomes stable, and then there is a big leap. We thought it was because of the pandemic, but when we analyzed, this is a distribution of the month of January 2015, and this is a distribution of the month of January for 2025. So you can notice that is an exaggeration, thinking that on a single day, more documents were downloaded than in the whole month, many more times. Then the normal use does not have any kind of comparison. When these bots start going over the site. So what do we have to think about? We must think that we should dimension our infrastructures maybe 40 times more so that just twice a month people can come in to take our data. And if they did daily, we should dimension our infrastructure to be able to answer to the requirements of these platforms and these corporations. So this, just to get an idea of the analysis of the blogs that we are doing, these are the companies and they are not in order. It's just arbitrary, but just to get an idea of which ones they are. And for example, these are the entities that are associated to the IP addresses, the main ones that come up every month taking data. But for example, in this topic of distributed attacks, we have found that accessing on the same month with 60 different directions of IP addresses on the same day with up to 30 and 40 different addresses. This represents a 10% and 50% of the total monthly accesses to the repository. Around 200,000 or 150,000 different IP addresses, 100 of them take 50%. These are some of the IPs and the amount of access in the company that they correspond to. I'm going to go faster. And then we have the epistemological dimension. There's a paradox of the visibility, the invisible by absence or by appropriation. If we take into account that more than 80% of the texts used to train large models are in English, while the 5% comes from Latin America, Africa, Southeast Asia. This is data from 2021 and 2023. Does it make sense to suffer this kind of harassment, to call it some way? Although the scientific repositories from the global south may be harvested by AI, their content is diluted and decontextualized without citation or recognition. This produces a double invisibility. If we do not share knowledge, it doesn't exist for AI nor for global audiences. If it's shared, then it can be used as raw material and it loses traceability and community value. This dynamic reproduces a coloniality of knowledge. The North processes, defines, and distributes, the South provides raw material. Then, another risk also, something that I learned personally and I'm interested on, that I've been thinking about, is that there's something else that is produced. That if people stop consulting and contributing to academical platforms because they use AI platforms, then these spaces are losing dynamics and relevancy. As a consequence, then the community as a collective subject of knowledge vanishes. And this is individualized then to AI platforms, and this transforms the epistemology of knowledge, shifting from a collaborative, discursive, and critical logic, then changing to an individual and consumerist and algorithmic one, where it's perceived as a product, not as a process. So in this sense, what I think, or what I maybe want to talk about and put on the table, is that the language models respond to questions and issues regarding the information that they were trained with. These cannot answer questions about knowledge that are still not developed. So if an individual works in a platform alone, it has to generate knowledge alone. It cannot collaborate. It cannot go into a network or a community posing an issue, and then the network might help to solve it, because there's not much more. Stopped being used and everyone uses the platforms. So those spaces of generating collaborative knowledge falls. And lastly, so just so I can finish with the actions, and that's why I was saying that this is a work all together on December 2024 as an initiative of Horacio Di Giorgi and Adrián Méndez from the Cuyo University, Marcela Fujimi and Gustavo Archuby in the University of La Plata, where 12 universities participated. The goal was to value and protect the academic production in face of the challenges posed by AI and open access. So in this sense, we worked on 4 different axes: infrastructure, to research and deploy our own servers based on the free and open source large language models that are local, and the development of our own platforms and AI tools. Diego Ferreira proposed something that we already spoke about, a federated axis that was mentioned, and more collaborative, that we can work together about these topics. An axis that is education, which is training ourselves in the development of tools using generative AI. And in this sense, we think that they proposed on working with AI, which is chatbots, but we are going to think about other ways that we can work with the language models that are not just a single chatbot. And we can also ask ourselves why it's a chatbot and why we're being given this free tool. And then I believe the answer is something that is being talked about often. And then training the university community in the use of AI platforms. We must think about our alumni, teachers, and our professors must know what to delegate and what skills not to delegate to AI, and when. It is not the same for students to use AI whenever they are being trained, and that they use a professor or a researcher when there's already training behind it. So thinking about what to delegate and what not to, and when, that is something fundamental, part of the topics that we're working on at the school and with this group of universities. And lastly, thinking about policies and developing policies on AI platforms in educational and organizations for the protection and auditing of the data. In the same sense, we worked with all these fields in the faculty. We have our own servers. We're developing apps. We have a chat with our institutional repository and academical repository. There's a chatbot that has been developed and served by our own servers. We are training our community and we are defining policies. So in conclusion, just to close out, in this context, it is important nationally to check the rules for access in the repository, to have an expropriation that is a massive by foreign technology companies for commercial purposes. Likewise, it is necessary to create federated platforms and implement differentiated access methods, as these represent fundamental steps to safeguard academic work and ensure that the benefits of open access remain aligned with its original objectives. Respecting the agreements established upon joining the Open Access Initiative means protecting the work of others who share their documents under the aforementioned conditions. Only through collaborative strategies and responsible management will it be possible to enable access to scholarly output while preserving institutional resources. These actions will allow repositories to continue serving as spaces for the dissemination and preservation of knowledge, fostering a user community that connects researchers and strengthens their original purpose while advancing toward technology sovereignty. So thank you very much.
Muchas gracias. Thank you very much, Gustavo, for the sort of getting a very concrete, around these technical, ethical, policy, and epistemological questions that come with AI. So with that, we still do have time for some questions. So I'll start inviting people to come up to the microphone and ask questions to any of our four panelists. I see first movement, so.
I'm not as young as the people normally asking questions.
We want questions from everyone in the audience.
Thank
so
you.
welcome.
Stephen Webb from the International Federation of Library Associations. I wanted two sort of quick questions, but I was going to say, I really liked the point you made about we have nested infrastructures. We use the word very loosely, and actually mapping out the different layers and types is helpful so that we have the same conversation about the same things. I wanted to ask Sefakor, it's a fantastic example of two infrastructures coming together and then having babies, of little other projects that come out of it. I'd be really interested to hear any more about your experience with WACRA and of that combination of cultures, as of course libraries have a very long experience of being this critical community, non-commercial infrastructure, but what happened when they got together with you, and what can we learn from that? What can we take from that? The other question is broader, just about, as we're talking about public goods, this is basically an economics question. And so any thoughts for you about how we can actually engage the economics field more broadly and having that reflection on how do we pay for these things where we don't want to have to charge for entry at the door? Thank you.
Great. Yeah, go ahead, take the first one. And
yes. So to answer your question, there are print servers, and then what we realize is that our community members, those that we developed the platform for, also wish to have this print service. Now, how do we meet them? How do we satisfy their needs? We realize that since we have a repository platform, which is Baobab, and there is Qua Notify. We can do that integration with Baobab and Publish Now. Publish Now being the publishing platform. And so the researchers who want to have the preprint service as a platform and deposit their manuscripts or articles there. And then we are able to help them with the Qua Notify. And so their research article get published on the publishing platform. Yeah.
Thanks. And the second one, maybe I'll turn to Yvonne, who spoke about the sustainability of the OAJ. Maybe you could speak to that second part.
Sure, thank you. Thank you for that question. And I hope the DOJ serves as an example of this sustainable model. As I mentioned, 80% of our funders are from the community, and this is thanks to the, I think we have demonstrated how helpful the platform is for these different purposes. For instance, as I mentioned, to show the list of the variety of journals that we have in the world that are open access and from different models, the useful of our metadata and the availability of it, and as I mentioned, is free and it's interoperable, etc. So I think strong platforms with like stable goals and like stable paces towards democratization of knowledge is the key. And I think, again, also serving the community by providing other things like guidelines, trainings, and this connection, like human connection with the stakeholders, I think it's crucial. Because sometimes we tend to think about platforms as like just the technology, but as it has been mentioned, the other layers matter as well. And the ambassador program, I think it's a pretty good example of how we have connected with the communities and how we have heard the needs of communities and how we have shaped our criteria and our policies to serve these communities. So I think it's collectively the way that it is possible to sustain these platforms.
I'll say before we turn to the next question, so this question of the funding of the infrastructures is one that we keep coming back to, but it's been nice to see, well, at least, this event, we've been highlighting all these different aspects and dimensions of the infrastructures. But when we want to think about the provision of open access infrastructure or open science infrastructures, it's also an opportunity to rethink the way that we finance the communication and how we carry out science and how we finance the communication of science. As we highlight and emphasize the different kinds of infrastructures that are necessary, it also invites us as a community to revisit the ways in which we orchestrate all of the economics that come around it. So I'll offer that as a general reflection that I think tries together some of the themes from the different speakers. Let's turn to another question from the audience here.
Thank you for inspirational talks. I understand that open science and open scholarship can help reduce educational inequality. I think collaboration between academic and public library is key to making this openness more inclusive. So my question is, how are such collaboration progressing, and UNESCO and all of you taking any steps to support public library? Thanks.
Anyone want to?
So at Wakren, what we do is to have our members form a community. So they drive what they want. They come together and let us know their needs. And so we also have the infrastructure to support them. So the community members come together, they form their own networks. We have experts who are knowledgeable in these fields. And so it's not just about our institution providing for them, but they come together as a community and they drive this, and we support them more.
Milen, go ahead.
Hi. My comment is for Gustavo. I hope it's going to be translated for him. Thank you, Gustavo, for articulating something that's been discussed since yesterday, and it's coming again today about the unfair deal that we are having right now. And one thing that I want to underscore is that what you showed is unethical. These platforms are taking the data unethically, but technically speaking, some of them are doing it legally because we are all putting open science license on this. This is the vision that we had thought was fair at the time when we envisioned open science. But maybe it's time, and that's something that we were discussing during the coffee breaks here, to revisit this license that we're putting on the open science so that the deal will be fairer for everyone. So thank you, but you mentioned that maybe we should modify the law. Maybe we need to modify our open licensing here so that it will be more equitable. Thank you.
Did you hear the question? Yes, I heard it perfectly. Yes. It may be a rhetorical question in the sense that whether we should change the law or not. It took us 10 years, many years, 10 years before the law was passed in Congress, and thinking about changing this law after all the work it entailed would not work. This situation, however, leads us to think that we may want to change it because we have been experiencing issues. On the other hand, when we thought about this, we never thought that these repositories would be used by companies with financial purposes in mind. That was not the goal of this repository. So from that point of view, I think it is important to discuss this in a community.
Yeah. Thank you. Yancy.
Hello, Yancy Flores-Bueso from the Global Young Academy. As research is becoming more data intensive and it's generating more data outputs, I wonder, as a researcher, I have found that even when a paper is peer reviewed, the data is probably unusable. And I wonder if you have thought of how can we improve this, or like getting together a peer reviewed with the data management, so that we can guarantee that the outputs of the research, which is the data, is reproducible, reusable, and interoperable. Thank you.
Maybe Mikiko, can I invite you to answer that question?
Yes, we have.
Good. That was easy.
And one of the good topics in both publishers and scientists and funders, because of, so as they say, has to be reproducible and together with explained enough for you to replicate. Not only by you, but also by AI agent. So what sort of information can you produce for everyone in the world, for your colleagues or unknown colleagues, is a big question. And they have already more concrete discussions started in many communities, as far as I understand, how to document, how to automate the document, and how to put together with when you submit your articles to journals. Some journals not yet stated, but some journals do mention under the line recommendation that PID should be mentioned and metadata for any experimental data has to be clarified, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. However, I would like to ask you how reviewers are going to check, which is humanly not possible, in my opinion. Would be great, but would be very extremely time consuming as a volunteering base. So that both parties, that's why I'm saying that both parties should be collaborate. What is the sort of essential, agreeable consensus can be part of the article's processing from the submission to be reviewed, to get published to public. And it depends on the subject domain. Some subject clarified and do some effort, but some domains has not yet. And I don't know which one will come first, but I think if you've done some experiment, it would be nice to share in the global community. In a domain, we've done this. What do you think? And then it's not comprehensible. In that case, what solution will be available? So that's really, truly communications by scientists in the science community is really important. Otherwise, one day AI will do that for you to say, yes, he does. But you can't say, really? So that conversation will be very ongoing discussion, I think.
Thank you. I think we're going to squeeze in one more question, even though we're right at the mark. Yes, please. The last question, but it goes to you. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you. Asmalash Kahadgu from Lisan AI. Thank you for the amazing discussion and insightful ideas, and especially for the online presenter for the thought-provocative presentation. I was hoping to hear, maybe because I come from a very specific domain, on open infrastructure, sort of like open compute or sort of open actual hardware, that kind of discussion, because we're talking open science and AI. And as everybody knows, AI pretty much has like three components: data, compute, and algorithms. So, and some entities in the world have an unfair advantage on the compute. So if we're only talking about opening up data, then we're even kind of empowering those that have the unfair advantage on the compute. Have we thought of, or are there any thoughts around open compute or platforms in that sense? Thank you.
Yeah, well, it's similarly a provocative question, and I think a good one to be asking, and even a good one, I would say, to finish this panel, because it also opens up we've got really nice presentations here on a lot of the different dimensions of open infrastructure, but it also opens up the door to some of the questions that we, I think, as an open science community have really yet to be confronting in a very direct way. So I'll invite any of the four panelists that wants to attempt an initial response. I'm thinking either particularly maybe Gustavo or Sefakor, who build these infrastructures, but also Mikiko, because in Japan, you're speaking at these different aspects of the infrastructure. So invite any of you that wants to tackle it. Maybe we'll get a response from one in the interest of time. Whoever wants to take it to close this off.
In short, if I may.
Yes. No, I think go ahead.
Okay. I think open science is not necessary to be openly available everywhere, anytime in the long term. So that it is really important for scientists to be aware of what to make it open, what may not be open for a variety of reasons. But to be able to do so, we need to translate what does it mean to you and to us, to everyone. In some contexts, people misunderstand. Some people are not aware of it, or some people not yet experienced. So that once you make data open or articles open to public, that means that you've got to be prepared how far you can come with the information that you publish. So that's really, in a way, infrastructural challenges, but also in the scientist challenges.
Yeah, thank you very much for that response. I think we starts to raise and really challenge us around some of the asymmetries and the inequalities that exist in the scientific system as a whole, and then we then see those asymmetries and those inequalities, those opportunities for extraction and exploitation that come with opening, and it really brings attention, I think, again, as us as a community, and I really thank all of our speakers for helping to highlight and bring forward that we need to make sure that we continue to have those questions at the forefront, even as we are making, and we've seen these really successful infrastructures that are enabling open science, and we can celebrate and be excited about moving forward with them. But we also need to make sure that we are thinking about these questions around how this open science is going to then be taken up in the different ways that we were able to predict and in the ways that we weren't able to anticipate. So please join me in thanking our 4 speakers today for really challenging us and bringing us forward with these questions. So over to you, Megs, to close us out for the day. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bueno,
Thank you
gracias.
so much to all of our speakers for this panel, for all of the previous panels today, as well as to our moderators, our attendees. You know, it is interesting. We have these questions around exploitation and extraction. The pact identifies equity and solidarity. Equity and solidarity as the guiding principles for the responsible and ethical use of science, technology, and innovation. And so I think many of the ideas put forward and the projects put forward today provide concrete examples of what this could look like in practice so that we can move forward. I really appreciated that Professor Reggie Raju was brought in to the conversation earlier today, but so that, as Professor Reggie Raju would say, we can move forward as a movement with a purpose. Some housekeeping items before we close out. A gentle reminder to please take any trash that you may have accumulated with you. But if you are using a headset, please leave it here. So take your trash, leave the headsets, and then please return tomorrow. Tomorrow is Saturday, right? And so because it is Saturday, there will be a farmer's market outside of United Nations University, where I attended last week, and I must warn you that there are puppies freely available for adoption, but they do come with high maintenance costs. So, so watch out. But they are there. So you will walk through the farmer's market, and tomorrow we will be in the Elizabeth Rose Hall, which is on the 5th floor of this building. You don't need to know how to get there because our dear colleagues here at UNU will be at the entrance on the 1st floor to direct you to that space. And so I look forward to seeing all of you then.